Yields back. The gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Comer, is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, I want to thank our witnesses for being here today. This has been a very robust discussion, very difficult issue, brings out a lot of emotion. I appreciate everything that you all are discussing and fighting for. I have the opportunity to go first in questions, and I like to go towards the end because I like to listen to the debate, try to learn, listen to what other people say, and pick up some points that people make. And one of the points that Ms. Ocasio-Cortez made was that some of the guns, when we referenced the amount of gun violence in New York City, that a lot of those guns were coming from outside New York City. And I would say that's probably right. We have in Kentucky a fentanyl problem. I think just about every congressional district has a fentanyl problem. Our law enforcement tells us this fentanyl is coming across the border. And it's frustrating for us because we've had 100,000 deaths with fentanyl, and we believe that could be reduced by securing the border. But as I was thinking about that, I wonder if we ban certain types of weapons, Ms. Swear, I just wonder if the Mexican drug cartel, who is profiting from all the illegals crossing into the United States, they're profiting from all the fentanyl and much of the crystal meth that's in the United States. I wonder if it's possible that they would get into the gun business.
Well, I think that might be the least of the worries at that point. I mean, you would still have 400 million plus privately owned firearms in this country. There would need to be some sort of coherent enforcement plan. Americans routinely do not turn in these weapons. I mean, you look at, I think it was New Jersey when they banned magazines capable of either 10 or 15 rounds. Nobody turned those in. Out of a million of them, nobody turned those in. The people who do turn them in, let's say we're even twice as successful as Australia. You still have 200 million guns in this country, most of them now in the hands of the lesser law-abiding segment of society who didn't bother to turn them in, who didn't turn in their assault weapons. So, I mean, you would just have, and we'd be holding hearings too about, who is this being enforced against? If I may be blunt, these laws are less likely to be enforced against white suburbia. We're now going to be having hearings about how they're being enforced against poor people of color, and that helps no one. So, I mean, I'm not going to get into speculations about drug cartels, but I will say we will have several other problems that would be primary.
What do you think, Ms. Swear, that we should do instead of passing gun control laws to make our community safer?
I think, again, as I've outlined, one of the first things you can do is focus on the mental health and the well-being of communities. I mean, things that help communities flourish, whether it's focusing on mental health, 2/3 of gun deaths are suicides. As Mr. Jackson noted, look, there are a lot of issues that are interrelated, is very seriously interrelated with violence and violent crime. Focusing on stemming those issues, whether it's access to safe spaces, whether it's mental health, whether it is educational and job opportunities, the things that make families and communities flourish are the things that reduce violent crime. And again, it does more than reduce violent crime because now we're talking about human flourishing on top of that.
Right. My friend Rokana also mentioned about violent criminals having guns, and our position is violent criminals should be in jail. I think that's the position of everyone on this side of the aisle. How can we empower our law enforcement professionals and our criminal justice system to bring violent criminals to justice and keep them off our streets?
Well, I think, I'm hesitant to actually blame law enforcement for a lot of those issues.
I'm not blaming law enforcement.
Right, I mean, at the end of the day, what happens to them afterwards that's out of the hands of law enforcement. That's local prosecution.
Exactly.
Prosecution. That's, dealing with laws about the parameters of what those prosecutors can and can't do.
Right.
So I think it's more complex than that, and it's going to come down to what state or locality we're talking about where that problem might exist, but that is a major focus. Yes.
Very, very good. I agree. There's a trend in a lot of the cities where there's the most violence with guns. These cities have strict gun control laws already in the books that the criminals aren't abiding by. But they also have many prosecutors, including the one in San Francisco who was recalled last night, who have been very lax on criminals. I think the criminal justice system was created to try to help people that had been unfairly incarcerated for minor things like marijuana possession. I think there's bipartisan support for people who are in prison for little things like marijuana possession to be let go. I support that. But I think it's gone too far, and we have criminals now that are on the streets, and that's not good. In the name of COVID, a lot of prisoners in this town, Washington, D.C., were let out, and we've seen, you know, a spike in crime. So I think that there are many points we need to consider moving forward. Obviously, and Madam Chair, I'm wrapping up, obviously, we need to invest in school security. We need to invest in resource officers. We need to have better trained school resource officers, and we need to share data on mental health issues and any potential threats with kids from social media and things like that. Thank you.
Gentleman's time has expired.